Hey folks, Tim Newman with Softlight Studios, and it's time for another Adobe Lightroom Classic CC Quick Tip. In today's Quick Tip, we're going to take a look at how to make sliders easier to use throughout the Lightroom product. Our Quick Tip video today in Lightroom is going to be all about using the sliders and some inside tips, tricks, and techniques that make them easier to use. And specifically today, we are going to focus on the sliders in some of the control panels in the Develop module. So we're going to take this picture right here that we're currently focused on. We're going to hit the D key to go into the Develop module, and you'll see immediately we are in loop view mode with the basic control panel open. And let's say that as I were editing this picture, I wanted to take the exposure slider and bump it up a little bit, which I think this picture needs in all reality. And then I changed my mind and I say, I'd really like to put that back the way it was. Now, I'm sure we've all experienced the frustration of trying to get back to zero on a slider and that moving left and right until we get the slider centered where we want it to be. Well, you may or may not be aware of this, but Lightroom has some ways of making this much easier for you. For starters, if you come over here to the input box next to the slider, you will see that your icon becomes a scrub tool icon, and you can actually scrub that slider back and forth. Now, not a whole lot different than scrubbing the slider back and forth here, so fairly similar, but a lot easier and smaller space to grab onto in terms of scrubbing that slider back and forth. I can also come in here and double click in here, which you'll see activates that input box and highlights the value that's currently there. And I can say, I'd like this to be reset to 0 and hit enter. I don't have to be dialing back and forth with that slider to try to nab that 0 value that I want. The other thing I can do here is, let's say I take this slider and I happen to go this way with it and I accidentally take out a bunch of exposure I want. I can just simply double click on the slider control handle, and that will put that slider back into its 0 position. Also, I can do the same thing over here on the slider label itself, and that will take it back to its 0 position. So all of those are really nice quick shortcuts for taking a slider and undoing what you just did and recentering it back at 0. Now let's say that I adjusted a bunch of sliders. I came in here and I grabbed this, grabbed this, grabbed this, changed that, made a whole bunch of changes here, and the reality is, all said and done, I'm not entirely happy with my changes. I'd like to reset all of them. You'll notice if I come up here to where it says tone and I hold down the Option key on the Mac, that would be the Alt key on Windows, it'll say reset tone. And if I click on that, it puts all of those sliders, every one of them that I moved, back to its default position. You notice that the presence sub panel down here didn't do that, but if I hold down that Option key on the Mac, Alt key on Windows, and hover over that, I get a reset presence option there as well, so I can reset that sub panel. Obviously, I could have reset all of that over in history, but if there were some changes up in the tone panel intermixed with some changes down in the presence panel, I could easily reset the presence panel and leave the tone panel the way it was, effectively allowing me to kind of jump into the middle of the history stack in a number of places, as it were. So this works with a lot of the sliders in Lightroom, the recentering back to the 0 values shortcuts, and recentering blocks of sliders in a sub-control panel. Check it out throughout the product and find places where these shortcuts work for you, and I think you'll find that your editing process becomes just a little bit quicker. So there you have it, folks. A couple of insights on using sliders and some of the shortcuts that are available to you in Lightroom to make them easier to adjust and make your workflow a little bit faster. Speaking of making your workflow a little bit faster, don't forget to click on that subscribe button down below so you can see all these quick tips and all the other videos that we bring to you on a regular basis here at Softlight Studios. Hopefully this helps you out in your efforts in Lightroom and makes your editing process just that much more fun. So go out there and get some more pictures and edit them so you can play with this new information. And remember, learning equals skills. Practice equals mastery. We'll see you out there.